skier, male or female, ever, and a worldwide inspiration.
We need a lot of women doing sports really, really well.
The story of Michaela Schifrin's game-changing reign at the top of the slopes when we go person to person.
I'm a very curious person. I wake up every morning asking what's happening in the world, why is this happening, and how do we answer that question?
Tonight, President Biden is traveling to Israel and other Middle Eastern countries. What will come out of the trip? And will the House finally get a new speaker today? Then, the search for 4 inmates who escaped a Georgia jail. Tonight on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Number of votes cast is 432, of which the Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 200 votes.
Are you going back to the floor today? Watch out.
What time do you expect?
On Wednesday, President Biden will visit Israel. He's coming here at a critical moment for Israel, for the region, and for the world.
Hello, I'm Nicole Killian in Washington, and welcome to America Decides. We are keeping our eye on what is happening in Israel, and we'll head to the region this hour. But first, we begin with another historic vote in the House. Republicans tried again to elect a speaker, but Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan failed to win enough votes to secure the gavel on the first ballot. The chair of the House Judiciary Committee received 200 votes. That's 17 short of what he needed. The House is at a standstill until lawmakers pick a new speaker. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarland joins us now. And Scott, bring us up to speed on the state of play and explain why Congressman Jordan couldn't get the votes on the first round.
Here we are, 2 weeks after the House, for the first time ever, voted somebody out of the speaker's chair, and they can't seem to vote anybody back in. As the evening began here at the Capitol, Nicole, Jim Jordan, the candidate nominated by the House Republicans, was meandering his way through the Capitol corridors, up the first floor, down from the second floor, going room to room as he met with different members, likely trying to twist some arms, metaphorically, make some deals, and secure more votes. But that margin on the first vote today was larger than some people expected. 20 defectors inside his own party. He could afford just about 4, which means it's such an uphill climb to get where he's got to go. We caught up with him a short while ago as he tried to, as he has throughout this week, exude optimism.
How many rounds do you think this speaker vote's going to take?
We need to get it. Watch yourself. Watch yourself. We need to get a speaker as soon as possible and get to work for the American people.
Any concerns you've heard from members about tactics used to win your vote?
No.
He is answering questions about tactics because some of the Republicans who voted for somebody besides Jim Jordan today criticized the tactics being used by Jordan and his surrogates to try to whip votes, including Carlos Jimenez, who we'll hear from very soon, who said that the pressure campaign didn't resonate or land well with some Republican members and is not indicative of somebody who's going to lead and have followers. This is what Jim Jordan is combating as the evening begins.
You know, we also heard on the floor from GOP conference chair Elise Stefanik. She gave the nominating speech for Jim Jordan. Let's take a listen to that.
We are here in this very chamber for such a time as this. Jim Jordan will be We the People speaker for such a time as this.
Now, those comments drew a rousing applause, as I'm sure you know, on the Republican side of the aisle, but it still wasn't enough to move some of these members. I mean, at this hour, what are some of these holdouts saying about why they voted no, and what is Jim Jordan doing to try to flip them?
Yeah, some of those who voted another way, besides Jim Jordan, have kept a uniquely low profile, especially by their standards, ever since casting that vote. That includes 4 Republicans from New York, all of whom voted a different way, including in some cases for former gubernatorial candidate Lee Zeldin. One of them, Nick LaLota, had said that the speaker candidate, Jim Jordan, didn't have a plan to avoid a government shutdown. But you're going to get a variety of concerns from a variety of members on this. And there really was a diversity politically to the contrarians here. It included the chairwoman of the House Appropriations Committee, Kay Granger of Texas. It included some first-term members of Congress, including those from New York, and Jen Kiggins from the Tidewater area of Virginia, a huge military district. John James, military veteran from suburban Detroit. So you see there's a geographical range, but also a political range in the defections, which does make it more difficult for Jim Jordan to fire one political silver bullet and bring everybody on board at the same time.
And so that begs the question, if not Jim Jordan, then who? I mean, what's the plan B?
I was going to ask you the same question, Nicole, but let's play this out for a minute here. We do know there were members of the House Problem Solvers Caucus, Democrats who a few days ago wrote a letter at least offering the possibility that they empower the temporary speaker, Patrick McHenry, to do more with his job, open up the House floor, begin legislating at least on a temporary basis. Congressman Jimenez mentioned that opportunity or that option also today. We'll see if that gets more traction and gets a broader appeal as the evening goes along. But a lot of this tale is going to be told on the second ballot. Is Jim Jordan gain or lose votes on the second ballot? That's the trajectory of this thing. And it's also hard to imagine a scenario, Nicole, where they open up the floor, take a second set of votes if Jim Jordan has lost support in the meantime.
All right, Scott McFarland, thanks so much. We'll let you get back to work there.
Thank you.
Florida Republican Congressman Carlos Jimenez joins me now. He voted on the floor today for former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. You know, you have consistently said only McCarthy. Is that how you plan to vote for however many rounds this takes?
Yep, I'm planning to stay with Kevin McCarthy. What happened 2 weeks ago, where a gang of 8 Republicans and 208 Democrats basically removed the speaker was not right. It was incorrect. It was unjust. Both our Majority Leader Scalise and now our designee Jordan don't have any different plans than what Kevin McCarthy had. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with Kevin McCarthy.
The former speaker said as he entered the chamber today that he has told those who support him to back Jordan instead. I mean, have you had any conversations with McCarthy or Jordan about this? And is there anything that could change your vote at this time?
No, nothing can change my vote at this time. I'm also very disturbed at the tactics used by Jim Jordan supporters.
I mean, what kind of tactics? What kind of tactics are you hearing about?
Misinformation, total lies about there was one thing said that I was supporting Jeffries for Speaker. I will never vote for Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker. I want a conservative Republican to be the Speaker. And so a lot of these tactics are not, they don't, for me, absolutely not. It doesn't work on me. Actually, what you've done now, you've cemented my position. And so I am for Kevin McCarthy. I will continue to be for Kevin McCarthy. I am not going to be voting for Jim Jordan to be the Speaker of the House. What I do want is there are Republican resolutions that are being prepared to open up the House. The House needs to be open. So we do need to give, if we can't get this resolved in a day or two, the House needs to be open. We need to give more powers to the Speaker Pro Tem, Patrick McHenry, and operate the House. It actually makes absolutely no sense that we don't have such a plan in place. I know it may have worked for 250 years, but imagine if we have an incapacitated speaker, either through injury or illness, and all of a sudden the people's work stops. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. So we need to move on with the people's business, and we will end up, choosing a speaker. But for me, we need to choose the right speaker. It doesn't have to be done necessarily quickly, as long as we give the Speaker Pro Tem the power to open up the House.
And can you expand on that a little bit? I mean, how much longer do you think the Speaker Pro Tem should remain in power if that were to occur? And is that something that is viable? Because I know some of your fellow Republicans have expressed constitutional concerns about that.
We have to. And if there's a constitutional problem with that, I mean, we got a problem with the Constitution. This is the only organization that I know of that if somebody is incapacitated, the CEO is incapacitated, all production stops, the whole thing shuts down. Look, that's just not logical. And so I believe that there is a path forward. And yes, you can get the entire Congress. If you get 218 votes to give additional powers, I think you can. And so a lot of these resolutions have gone through attorneys, and we believe that they are legal and constitutional. We need to open the House. That being said, how long is it going to take? It's going to take as long as it takes. And we need to get this right. We need to have the right speaker. We need to have a speaker that can unify all of us. Look, 2 weeks ago, 96% of the Republican conference was with Kevin McCarthy. He had 210 votes. That was two weeks ago. And it took only 8 Republicans to light the fuse, and then the 208 Democrats actually provided the gunpowder to remove him. That wasn't right. He is the right speaker. We should go back to Kevin McCarthy. I'm sure that if we draft him, that he'll come back. But if he doesn't, then we need to find somebody that can that we can unify around. Somebody that doesn't use these tactics, this pressure tactics. Because you know what? To be a leader, you need to get people to follow you, not to push them into following you, but to follow you. And so I found those tactics very disturbing and not really something, it's not a speaker trait that I would look forward to.
In spite of these tactics that you describe, I mean, at the end of the day, some members seem to suggest that as you also said, that it is time to get back to the business of governing. And while you may not be all in for Jordan, isn't that better than having this state of dysfunction, particularly if you say, no matter how long this takes?
Well, listen, what I've said is that we need to get the House open again and get the business of the House moving. We think we can do that through a resolution, giving the Speaker pro tem the powers to do that. So I'm not saying everything stops. So we need to get going on
But if that particular proposal doesn't move forward, at the end of the day, don't you have to rally behind someone? And besides Kevin McCarthy, who is that someone?
Well, I don't have that someone. We have to agree on who that someone is. Right now, for me, it's Kevin McCarthy. A lot of people have a lot of different ideas, but there's about 20 of us right now, and I think that number will grow, that don't think Jim Jordan is that person. And so, look, I have nothing against Jim Jordan, but I'm not there, and I don't believe I'm going to be there.
I mean,
who
are some of these other members or potential holdouts that could add to the 20?
I'm not going to get involved in that discussion right now. Right now, we have a speaker designee that's on the floor. He'll probably bring us back to the floor. Look, like Steve Scalise, decided and understood that he didn't have the votes to get there. He never brought us to the floor. Now we're on the floor, and it's going to be, put out in public. I just don't think that Jim Jordan's going to get there.
You think Jim Jordan should drop? You think Jim Jordan should drop out or withdraw?
I'm not going to tell Jim Jordan what to do. I'm just telling you what I think. I don't think he's going to get there. Now, there comes a point in time where, yes, you got to move on. And when we get to that point where we have to move on, but we also have to open the House at the same time. And I do think it's constitutional, and I think it's legal, and we need to get those resolutions. Obviously, the Democrats think it's legal. They have their own resolution. We have ours. And so we need to move forward with that. The House shouldn't be closed, but we need to get the right speaker. Not the quick speaker, the right speaker.
All right, Congressman Carlos Jimenez, we thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
And on the other side of the aisle, the House Democratic Caucus remains united. House Minority Whip Katherine Clark joins us next to weigh in. You're streaming America Decides.
Well, let me start with this.
This really happened.
Have you told the government?
Did any of that make sense?
What's your response? You want me to just keep going? What's wrong with that argument?
What have you learned?
Do you know why?
Why? Why?
It's time for 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much food you've rescued from the landfill?
We've rescued 4.5 million pounds.
I can't even fathom how much food that is.
And that's one little person in one little city in America. We're going to call this chicken piccata. We did 450 of these meals today.
This is the exact dish you and I are going to have.
Yep.
Oh, really good.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Having a plan of how to keep people fed should be in every single city.
If we eliminated food waste, could we eliminate
hunger? Yes.
Eating Trash, now streaming on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS Reports.
You had a substitute teacher that was pretty popular. What was his reputation?
Everyone loved him.
You had to miss a test. What did he offer to have you make up the test?
He said that I can come by after school was all over and just take the exam. The blinds were down. He closed the door. The next thing I knew, he was right next to me. That's when I realized what was going to happen. Even if I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs, no one would hear me because no one was there. He told me that if I ever said anything to anyone, he would kill me and he would kill my family. So I did it.
Pledge of Silence, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
He was there when the war in Ukraine started.
Extreme history. It's a big moment.
The extraordinary story behind Sean Penn's new Paramount Plus documentary, Superpower, when we go person to person.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable.
The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Why did you miss the moment?
I'm not sure why they missed the moment.
It doesn't look like Congress is doing anything. That's the role of Face the Nation, to focus on the issues at hand. That means a civil conversation with perspective.
We are here because the House has been thrown into chaos. We are here because this hallowed chamber has been led to a breaking point by two dangerous forces: extremism and partisanship.
Welcome back to America Decides. That was the chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar, with some tough words for the current state of the House. This as Congressman Jim Jordan couldn't clinch the Speaker's gavel in the first round of voting. House Minority Whip and Massachusetts Congresswoman Katherine Clark joins us now. Madam Whip, thanks so much for being with us. If Jim Jordan succeeds, is he someone that Democrats could work with?
Listen, Democrats have two goals right now. First is to stop Jim Jordan from becoming Speaker, and second is to find a bipartisan path forward. Who the person is doesn't matter. What matters is that we get back to governing. And we would hope at this point the House GOP would realize that extremism is a dead end, and there is no one more extreme than Jim Jordan.
What do you mean when you say the person doesn't matter? I mean, clearly, I would think you may have a preference one way or the other. You just said you don't prefer Jim Jordan. So would be a consensus pick?
What we're looking for is not a specific person, but a person who will come forward and say, I'm going to be the Speaker, but be able to bring bipartisan bills to the floor. Let's have up and down votes. We're very clear-eyed. They have the majority. But what is happening in the majority is a civil war is preventing us from doing the work the American people sent us here to do. And we have critical allies across the globe watching this dysfunction within the House GOP and worrying about where America stands. Will they stand with us? So it could be any number of people, but the key is that they come to us and say, we'll take yes for an answer. Let's get a bipartisan solution to move forward with their Speaker.
I know Democrats have called for this bipartisan governing coalition, which you just referenced, and the leader said earlier this week that there have been informal conversations. Can you update us on where those discussions stand, and has anything been formalized at this point?
We still have, conversations ongoing. There is nothing formalized, but the options are on the table. And again, we need the House GOP to take yes. And as you look back on how Democrats have governed, how we have even governed in the minority, We lead with bipartisanship. Just look back at the default crisis when the GOP here in the House took our economy to the edge of ruin. We came to a compromise and voted, 314 of us, in a bipartisan way to move forward. It was Speaker McCarthy, catering again to the extremists in his party, who abandoned that and has thrown our whole budget process into a shambles and chaos. So we're here, we have proven it, we have the track record to show that we are sincere about moving forward. We are just looking for a willing partner to end their civil war, turn away from their internal politics, turn back to doing the real work that families sent us here to do.
Even as you call for bipartisanship, at the end of the day, Democrats joined 8 Republicans to oust Kevin McCarthy 2 weeks ago. Do Democrats have any regrets about that?
Absolutely not. That was, again, the Republican Party is the majority. That was their motion to vacate. It was their votes that took away the speakership from Kevin McCarthy. What we are here saying is that every time there has been a choice, Kevin McCarthy could have made a choice to work with us. He could have made that choice back in January. He did make that choice. We gave the votes for it when he asked in June. He walked away from that agreement. So again, we are here, we're the adults in the room, and our focus are on the real needs at home. We're going to continue the work we did in the minority with the exact same, majority, a very slim majority, and continue it, whether that's building infrastructure, lowering the cost of insulin, protecting Social Security and Medicare. These are the issues that people want. And what we've seen today in putting up Jim Jordan is they're doubling down on extremism and saying someone who leads the national abortion ban movement with no exceptions is who should be speaker. This is moving to really extremism and high partisanship that isn't good for the country. It isn't good for the people who sent us here.
In terms of the path forward, there are some lawmakers on Capitol Hill, including Congressman Jimenez, who we just spoke to in the last segment, who have supported giving Speaker Pro Tem Patrick McHenry more power. Is that something that Democrats can get behind?
Like I said, it could be Patrick McHenry. Let's come to the negotiating table with us. Let's set some parameters. Leader Jeffries has set these out in public, saying, let's have some ability to get bipartisan bills to the floor for up or down votes. We're not saying that we have to have a Democratic speaker. We're saying, come to us, work with us, make this place govern again. We have critical and urgent work, and we need Republicans to turn away from their infighting and turn back towards the work we need to do.
All right, Congresswoman Katherine Clark, also the Minority Whip, we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Nicole.
House Republicans are divided after failing to pick a speaker in the first vote. Next, we will discuss what the situation says about the state of the GOP. Plus, President Biden is on his way to Israel. We'll have the very latest about his trip. You're streaming America Decides.
Our story's just begun. Why did you want to share your story?
Water up this high?
Where are these coming from?
That's the $1 million question.
I'm a very curious person. I wake up every morning asking what's happening in the world, why is this happening, and how do we answer that question on the CBS Evening News?
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
but with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Haitians are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We aim every night to be factual and fair. That's our goal.
An original documentary from CBS reports. Controversial Congressman George Santos.
Why won't you answer our questions?
How did he manage to get elected?
Thank you very much, and God bless you, and God bless the USA.
George Santos' campaign was a campaign of deceit, lies, fabrication.
And who is he, really?
I knew him as Anthony DeVolder from Queens.
Really, who he is, he's a fraud.
I compare him to the Tinder swindler.
From people who know him, the truth, the facts, the lies.
He would say that he was worth $100 million.
It's an incredibly cynical episode in American politics, beyond satire.
Had you ever seen anything like this?
No, and I hope I never see it again.
Campaign of Deceit, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Since childhood, she never stopped reaching for the skies. Now she's spent more time in space than any other American.
I like being a part of something bigger than me.
Peggy Whitson's extraordinary career as a history-making astronaut when we go person to person.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
I think I asked direct questions. I don't know that they're tough questions per se. Why aren't you holding yourself to that standard? It doesn't look like Congress is doing anything. What has to happen? That's the role of Face the Nation, to focus on the issues at hand. And that means a civil conversation with perspective.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to America Decides. The House plans to hold a second speaker vote tomorrow. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan is trying to win over multiple GOP lawmakers to become the next speaker. Several Republicans didn't vote for him in the first speaker vote. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise both got a handful of votes, among others. Robert Costa and Major Garrett join us now. Robert is CBS News Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent, and Major is CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent. And Bob, I want to start with you because I know we've been spending a lot of time in the basement of the Capitol together. You've been doing a lot of reporting on this speaker's race. Now that this vote is off for today, it appears, at what point might Jim Jordan throw in the towel, or does he continue to ride this out?
Nicole, we have just learned that Congressman Jordan has decided to spend the night trying to talk to these Republicans on the fence to get to that necessary 217 he needs to win the Speaker's gavel. Republicans will meet tomorrow morning ahead of the Speaker vote. They're going to have another vote tomorrow at 11 a.m. Jordan's going to a second ballot. But based on my conversations in the past hour, it's just not clear he's going to be able to get there. This is deeply personal for some members. They don't like how this process has played out. Now, I'm not sure for at least 5 to 8 of them if there's anything Jordan can say to get them over the line.
And I know, Major, you spoke with Congressman Jordan back in 2021 about the 2020 election. I want to take a look back at that interview.
Yeah. Can you be a conservative and disagree with the president about the 2020 election?
I don't think it's helpful. I think we should be focused on making sure that we have integrity in our elections going forward. That's what I've always said about. There are millions of Americans who have concerns about what happened in this last election. I've never said this election was stolen. All I've said is let's check it out.
So in terms of some of the opposition that Jim Jordan is facing, how much of his position with respect to the 2020 election and his role in January 6th, how much of that is a factor in this race?
It's a very big factor. And what you just heard is a convenient dodge. I've never said the election was stolen. We just need to check it out. Wait a minute. You were giving aid and comfort to those who were looking for ways before January 6th, a couple of days right before it, to try to subvert and overturn a verified, legally validated presidential election. And when Ken Buck of Colorado last week asked Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan to declare before the entire Republican conference that the election wasn't stolen, both of them refused to do so in unequivocal terms. So if Jim Jordan wants to be the Speaker of the House, he's going to have to come to terms with what happened in 2020 and do it more vocally and more emphatically than he has so far. I don't think he's willing to do that, and that's going to be one of many irritants. As Bob has pointed out, it's not the only irritant. There's several irritants, some of them personal, some of them policy, some of them political. But Jim Jordan did not expect to lose by 20 votes. Neither did people around him. 20 votes is not close. And if this vote tomorrow goes and he's not trimmed that by at least half, I don't see how he continues to go forward.
But Bob, you've been reporting, I mean, we're likely 10 to 20 holdouts. So is this really a big surprise?
It is a surprise because he had been putting a pressure campaign on over the weekend. But some members, especially traditional Republicans, those from swing districts, they have questions. To build on what Major just said, remember CBS News reported in early 2022 that on January 6, 2021, in the White House phone logs, which we've obtained, there's a 10-minute call between Jordan and Trump. And Jordan has never really gotten into the details of what did he say to Trump on that fateful day.
And he ignored a subpoena from the January 6th Select Committee, a legally binding subpoena, which has been adjudicated by all sorts of courts. He defied it. He defied a subpoena to testify about what he knew, what he did, what he didn't do. That's a big opening question here. And if you listen...
I mean, do you think he needs to answer that before he moves forward?
Well, that'll be up for Republicans to decide. What is their ultimate requirement of a next Speaker of the House? This is not an insignificant one.
Because many have told me it's irrelevant. I've said many tell me it's irrelevant.
Irrelevant to them. Well, it may be irrelevant to them, but it is clearly relevant to those who have yet to decide to support Jim Jordan as the potential next Speaker of the House. Like I said, it's not the only irritant, but it's not insignificant.
We know the former president has endorsed Jim Jordan. Want to take a listen to what the former president had to say today?
I think Jim will be Speaker of the House. He's a fantastic young man. He's pretty young still, and he's very strong. He has very proper opinions about our country. He loves our country. He wants to see it do well, and I think he's going to be confirmed sometime soon.
I mean, Bob, as Jordan tries to find the votes, how much influence does the former president have right now? And do we know if he's making calls on Jordan's behalf?
I've heard that Trump has taken calls about Jordan, but the video you just saw tells the story. He's in New York, focused on his own civil case, the Trump organization facing a lot of scrutiny. He's not in the weeds here with congressional Republicans as they face off over this speaker vote. I mean, Trump's on the campaign trail. He's dealing with his legal challenges. Yes, he offered Jordan his endorsement, and Jordan got it, and Jordan's used that to his advantage to close the gap. But with a lot of these members, like the New York delegation, who are more moderate, the Trump endorsement, even though Trump's from New York, doesn't mean much because it doesn't help them in their districts.
Or what it means is more harmful than helpful. And there's also been behind-the-scenes grassroots pressure tactics on these members. And these membership votes, leadership votes, are deeply personal and intimate and face-to-face. Members of both parties deeply resent outside pressure campaigns, threatening primaries, other political damage if you don't get in lockstep. Look, we had a non-lockstep moment last week, engineered by hard-right Trump-influenced conservatives. Those who don't want to bow to those tactics now say, I remember what you did last week. I'm just doing what you did. Unless you come my way, on my terms, I'm not going to budge.
And then just very briefly, because both of you have extensive reporting experience in Washington, how do we get out of this? How do House Republicans get out of this?
Well, briefly, I would say at the end of the day here, or at the end of the day tomorrow when they have this vote, if Jordan can't win on a second ballot, either Tom Emmer, the Minnesota Republican who's the majority whip, steps forward and says, it's now my turn and I'm the next in line, or they just move to a consensus pick like Patrick McHenry. And Patrick McHenry is now the Speaker pro tem. Could they give him limited powers for a few months? That's in the works as a possible deal. Or maybe he just stands forward outright as someone who's generally liked by Republicans. But I've covered House Republicans for a long time. I think about 10 years ago this week, they were having the government shut down in 2013. Who knows?
Very quickly, to go back to Julius Caesar, the knives that took out Kevin McCarthy are now turned to Jim Jordan or other Republicans. When Republicans start putting down the knives that they're pointing at each other and using to skewer one another and start deciding on how they want to govern as a team, this will end. But not until that happens.
All right, Major Garrett, Bob Costa, thanks for your expertise as always. President Biden is heading to Israel as violence in the region escalates. We'll discuss who he'll be meeting with next. You're streaming America Decides.
On Face the Nation, the way to learn is to listen.
We may have a recession.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
Everybody wakes up in the morning and they are pelted with alerts that frighten them, news that agitates them. With this show, we have the time to explain what's going on. These migrants, they've been released. Explain the status that allows them to be released, to slow things down a little bit. What are the big sets of questions for China and its ambitions? Hackers are stepping up their attacks to extort victims. Let's start with easy. Who's attacking? Here's a deeper understanding of what's happening.
Prime Time with John Dickerson. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that? Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
This really
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did any of that make
What
sense?
have you learned?
What's your response?
What happened? Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started.
We take you places, teach you new things, and we make you feel like, it's not all bad. We're going to uplift you.
People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. I mean, you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
When weather turns extreme.
A massive storm with winds of 150 miles per hour.
The storm strengthened again overnight.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real, you'll have time to get prepared. Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS News.
I wake up every morning asking what's happening in the world, why is this happening, and how do we answer that question? After the tragic loss of beloved newsman Tim Russert, his son went on a worldwide journey to find himself.
I struggled with his grief for a long time.
How Luke Russert is honoring the legacy of his father when we go person to person.
Welcome back to America Decides. President Biden is about to leave for Israel. He will then travel to Jordan to meet with leaders there. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now from the White House. Weijia, good to see you. We just learned a short time ago that Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas has canceled his meeting with President Biden and with other leaders this week. What drove that decision, and does that impact the president's trip in any way?
Nicole, I have to tell you that at this moment, we are trying to verify breaking news reports that the foreign minister of Jordan has announced that the entire summit with Arab leaders that President Biden was supposed to attend tomorrow has been canceled. We have yet to verify that, but our White House unit is working on it. But you're absolutely right that the Palestinian news agency reported earlier today that the president of the Palestinian Authority decided to cut his portion of that visit to Jordan short so he could return to the homeland and deal with that massive civilian tragedy that you have been reporting on with regard to the bombing at the hospital. And so it was already going to be short one leader, but President Biden was still expected to meet with the president of Egypt and of Jordan, because, again, he really is focused on trying to get humanitarian aid into Gaza, and he needs partners in the region to be able to work out and finalize a deal to do that, because that crossing that we've heard so much about, the Rafah crossing, is under Egyptian control. And if they don't open it up for aid to go in and for people to come out, then there really is no way. And so we are monitoring that, Nicole, but regardless of whether that meeting happens or not, this bombing certainly will have implications on the president's visit there, and begins to highlight the tension that we have seen between Arab leaders that are calling for Israel to stop the siege and President Biden, who is very well aware of civilian casualties, and he's trying to walk a very fine line between respecting that, addressing that, and, of course, declaring rock-solid, unwavering support for Israel and its right to defend itself. Nicole?
Well, that being said, I mean, given some of the volatility in the region, why does the White House think now is the time to go?
Well, one of the big reasons they cited was that this was the right time to talk to leaders in the region about the humanitarian crisis that continues to unfold. And when you remove that portion out, then what is left? Well, the president still wants to send a message in person, the same one that he has been saying since day one of the attacks on Israelis, that the U.S. stands beside you and will continue to support you through this. In fact, we just learned today that Israel has requested $10 billion of emergency aid from the U.S., and that is under consideration as part of a broader aid package that the White House is trying to put together, along with, of course, Congress, that will have to ultimately pass it or not pass it because, of course, as you very well know, there's so much friction there when it comes to this aid, not only for Israel, but for Ukraine, for border security, for Indo-Pacific countries like Taiwan.
All right. Weijia Zhang at the White House tonight. Thank you so much.
Sure.
We're now joined by CBS News foreign correspondent Roxana Saberi. She joins us with the very latest from Tel Aviv, Israel. Roxana, you were in northern Israel today. What is the situation like there?
Yeah, Nicole, we were up there earlier today. It's very tense. Now, people who live along Israel's border with Lebanon are used to tensions, especially because they've had a history of tensions with Lebanon's Hezbollah, most notably a war in 2006. Yesterday, 28 communities along Israel's northern border within 1 mile of that border were ordered to evacuate. We met several members of one of those communities. They lived in a kibbutz called Iftah. They had fled to a hotel dozens of miles away in search of safety. Now, that's as Hezbollah and Israel have exchanged fire in recent days. Hezbollah claims it fired anti-tank missiles from Lebanon into northern Israel today, and Israel says it killed 4 militants trying to plant explosives on a border wall coming from Lebanon. Now, these are just the latest in a series of skirmishes in the past few days between the two foes. Nicole?
And what more can you tell us about some of the reinforcements that the Israeli military has sent to the northern border?
Yeah, as these tensions have been rising between Lebanon's Hezbollah and Israel, we saw some of the roughly 360,000 Israeli reserve soldiers that are being mobilized across the country in response to the October 7th attack by Hamas in that northern area. We saw some tanks, Humvees, other military vehicles, some cannons, several troops about 6 miles south of the border that Israel shares with Lebanon. We spoke with one officer who said his troops believe that their major threat right now in their area is Hezbollah firing anti-tank missiles across the border. There is a widespread concern that Hezbollah could open another front in this conflict against Israel. Hezbollah is thought to have an arsenal of tens of thousands of rockets and missiles that could hit anywhere here in Israel. And, of course, it's supported by Iran, which also supports Hamas. Iran's foreign minister has warned that what he calls the axis of resistance would open multiple fronts against Israel if it continues to kill civilians in Gaza. But Israel's prime minister and President Biden have warned Iran and Hezbollah not to get involved. Nicole?
And I know, Roxana, you've also been speaking to residents, including some who did flee north. What are they telling you?
Yes, some of those residents told us, members of their communities, some of those members had fled shortly after the October 7th attacks on southern Israel because they were worried, and many are still worried, that what had happened in southern Israel could happen to their communities in the northern part of the country with attacks by Hezbollah. They told us they're grateful to now have a safer place to stay. Many of those residents have moved to hotels and safer locations farther inside Israel. And they're trying to create this sense of normalcy, especially for children who were forced to evacuate their homes. We saw kids blowing bubbles, playing games, playing with toys, families eating meals together. We did ask a couple of the adults what they thought of what they're seeing going on in Gaza with all the casualties. And they said they don't want any more innocent deaths on either side, but they also want Hamas to be eliminated, and they want to feel secure, and they want their children to be safe. So there is no easy answer, Nicole.
All right, Roxana Saberi, thank you so much for your reporting, and stay safe. We want to show you these images where just moments ago, President Biden departed for Israel. He did not take any questions. Coming up next, we'll take you back to Washington to analyze Jim Jordan's chances to win the Speaker's gavel with our political panel. You are streaming America Decides.
Why did you want to share your story? Water up this high? Where are these coming from?
That's the million-dollar question.
I'm a very curious person. I wake up every morning asking what's happening in the world, why is this happening, and how do we answer that question on the CBS Evening News?
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Haitians are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We aim every night to be factual and fair. That's our goal.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Controversial Congressman George Santos.
Why won't you answer our questions?
How did he manage to get elected?
Thank you very much, and God bless you, and God bless the USA.
George Santos' campaign was a campaign of deceit, lies, fabrication.
And who is he, really?
I knew him as Anthony DeVolder from Queens.
Really, who he is, he's a fraud.
I compare him to the Tinder swindler.
From people who know him, the truth, the facts, the lies.
He would say that he was worth $100 million.
It's an incredibly cynical episode in American politics, beyond satire.
Had you ever seen anything like this?
No, and I hope I never see it again.
Campaign of Deceit, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Since childhood, she never stopped reaching for the skies. Now she's spent more time in space than any other American.
I like being a part of something bigger than me.
Peggy Whitson's extraordinary career as a history-making astronaut when we go person to person.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
I think I asked direct questions. I don't know that they're tough questions per se. Why aren't you holding yourself to that standard? It doesn't look like Congress is doing anything. What has to happen? That's the role of Face the Nation, to focus on the issues at hand. And that means a civil conversation with perspective.
We are
are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels. 100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Our friend and colleague Jim Jordan is a patriot. He is an America First warrior who wins the toughest of fights, going after corruption and delivering accountability at the highest levels of government on behalf of we, the people. Jim is the voice of the American people who have felt voiceless for far too long.
Welcome back to America Decides. Despite those words from the chair of the House Republican Conference, Elise Stefanik, on the House floor, Jim Jordan still failed to clinch the Speaker's gavel. Joel Payne and Mora Gillespie join us now. Joel is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist, as well as Chief Communications Officer for Move On. And Mora is a former advisor to Speaker John Boehner and former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. She is also the founder of Blue Stack Strategies. Welcome to both of you. Mora, I just want to start with you. I mean, we know that a second vote has been called off for now. The House will resume again on Thursday. But what does Jim Jordan need to do at this point to lock up the votes, or is his candidacy in jeopardy the longer this drags on?
The fact that Jim Jordan even got 200 votes to me is pretty shocking and quite frankly sad for the state of the Congress. You know, Jim Jordan is not somebody who should be Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House is somebody who needs to be not only representative of the party that's a majority, but also who can look out for the integrity of the institution. And that's not Jim Jordan. So I think those who have held firm, those 20, 21, perhaps there are a couple that will flip, but I don't see him getting there. And so I think there needs to be a new plan moving forward that does not include Jim Jordan at the helm.
What could that new plan be?
Well, I think, they've discussed giving Patrick McHenry some additional powers during this time where he's pro tem, so it could get things done. Because again, 1 month from now is when the government shutdown is slated to happen. So you really do need to think about the appropriations bills that need to happen and need to get across to the Senate and to the president's desk. So we really do need to start moving forward on things. And this delay and this putting up Jim Jordan is not going to get us there.
And Joel, I want to turn to you. I mean, we spoke earlier in the program with Minority Whip Katherine Clark. She continued to echo calls for bipartisanship. We have heard Democrats talk about this potential bipartisan governing coalition that they would like to see. I mean, is that even feasible at this point, given the dynamics in the House?
I mean, anything should be feasible to make sure that the work of the American people can go forward. And the Democratic leadership has been pretty united in that messaging that they're willing to do that. It's interesting to me. I've been obviously watching this with, I'm a partisan, so some glee. And I guess the political reality that kind of washes upon me is that not only is this bad for Jim Jordan, but it's bad for a number of members of his caucus. You've got about a dozen of those Republicans who are in these Biden districts that President Biden won in 2020, that are represented by Republicans. They had to vote for Jim Jordan today. Now, if Jim Jordan wins, I suppose that there is going to be some sort of coalescing around a message defending that. If he loses, those folks have taken a really bad vote on Jim Jordan, who has allegations of mishandling sexual assault allegations, who has obviously someone who voted with insurrectionists on January 6th, somebody who has pretty extreme positions on things like abortion. That's not a good vote if you're David Valadao. That's not a good vote if you are one of these other 12 Republicans in these Biden districts. So that also is not lost upon me as well.
And Mora, I guess just to piggyback on Joel's point here, I mean, how do you think this plays out politically for Republicans next year?
It's going to be a real challenge for those who did vote today for him. They're going to have to answer to that because, again, Jim Jordan has not shown any real willingness to be bipartisan and has not shown to really rise to the occasion. Again, the Speaker of the House is third in line of the presidency. This is not just, leading the party. This is leading the whole House and working on behalf of the whole House. And so his record does not show us that he is eager to work bipartisan. His record shows us that he has voted against certifying the election and took an integral role during January 6th and speaking with the former President Trump and encouraging him to, or encouraging Pence to do something illegal. There's real implications there that need to be addressed. And for those who voted for him today, they're going to have to answer for that. I will say, and just maybe a little bit, I am glad that he wore a jacket on the House floor today. But again, that doesn't necessarily make him speaker material.
And Joel, I want to turn back to you. Kevin McCarthy, the former speaker, has said in terms of the Democrats who voted with those 8 Republicans to boot him out of the job, that this was a political decision by Democrats. I mean, was this just an attempt to get the majority back in 2024?
I think Democrats voted their conscience. They voted in unison for someone they believed in. And I think it's kind of, pretty high folly for Kevin McCarthy to look to Democrats to bail him out because he could not keep any type of comedy within the Republican caucus. And I know that's a line that a lot of Republicans, particularly some kind of Republicans in leadership, have been pushing, but I just don't think that passes the smell test. Also, in this moment, I think Republicans also have to account for this. We're in the midst of 2 significant international conflicts in Israel and the Palestinian territories, and then also in the Ukraine. We've got a government shutdown bearing down on us inside of another 5 to 6 weeks. And they're having a hard time figuring out who is going to be at the head of the House of Representatives to help be a part of that solution. That does not speak well for governance. By the way, that's something that you're going to hear a lot about going into 2024 as you see this split screen between Biden's America and between kind of the Trump MAGA vision of America. I think that what you've seen over the last few weeks in the Republican House plays very much into that.
And Mora, how does the Republican Party move forward from this whenever a new speaker is elected?
It'll be really important for Republicans to kind of figure out who they want to be. Right now, they are very disorganized. They are very individual, really focusing on themselves and not as a team. And it is funny to me to hear people in the Jordan camp say, that now's the time to really unify. Well, you decided to throw the bombs in here in the first place, and now because you have your candidate that you wanted, that just to me is hysterical. But unfortunately, I think it'll be time for Republicans to recognize if they want to win or not.
All right, Mora Gillespie, Joel Payne, thank you as always for being with us. Thanks. That does it for today. You can stream America Decides Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. You are streaming CBS News.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is